Nickel 6-1 Tango Small J. Roman.
Oh, got it! Woohoo!
Roger. There's troubleshooting.
Did you box moving target?
No, I took an auto track.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Wow, look at it fly! What the
Welcome to the Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm Kristen Johnson.
Happy Thirsty Thursday.
Yes.
Yes. And what a week it's been. Like, this has been a crazy ass week. And, our show is going to be a little bit surrounding this Pentagon UFO report that was given to thesun.com. Per a Freedom of Information request, which is 1,574 pages of previously classified documents related to unidentified flying objects. And there's a lot to talk about here. There's radiation burns. There is pregnancies that cannot be explained.
There's soot.
There is soot.
Leftover soot. Which
We're going to talk about the soot.
Extremely interesting topic.
Absolutely. But before we get into all that stuff, I wanted to read once again from the Extraterrestrial Species Almanac. I said it wrong again. Almanac. Why do I do that?
I don't know. It's a really hard word, I guess.
It's not a hard word. It's a wicked easy word.
Just trying to help
Craig
here.
Campobasso, whose name I mispronounced the last time we did this. And I'm going to talk about the Arcturians as he has written them here in this book, forthright. Their universal origin is the Arcturians come from Arcturus, not surprisingly, a red giant star in the northern hemisphere of Earth's sky and the brightest star in the constellation Boötes, which looks like boots, but it's got the double dot. Boötes.
Almost like Swedish.
Swedish. Vi got meatballs. Male and female Arcturians appear somewhat uniform with a slight variation in features and heights from 10 to 12 feet. Their bodies are thin with lanky arms and legs. When they walk, they glide with elegance. Their skin is either a blue or a milk white. Very interesting.
Very, very.
The large craniums, they have large craniums. They have big heads with small noses and mouths. Arcturians are higher density forms, are of light in consciousness. Depending on what density they are from, their appearance alters. The higher the density, the more they become light. I'm going to skip over some of the stuff. This is a very interesting book. A lot of information in here. The technology includes Galactarian motherships, starships, thought ships, fleet ships, and scout ships. All craft are able to travel through time-space funnels and the inner space continuum.
Excellently said.
So that is that. And if you're interested in knowing, there's like 81 different aliens described in this book. So it's pretty interesting. I don't know where all the information comes from. There are pictures of actual aliens in it, which makes it very fascinating. And it's the Extraterrestrial Species Almanac by Craig Campobasso.
You said it. Maybe he'll come on our show now.
Maybe he will. I actually pronounced his name correctly, so there's a good chance. Anyways,
Yeah.
How you doing over there, Kristen?
I'm okay. I finally got the page up. Yay!
All right.
Saying thank you to Courtney Peterson for sharing it. Comments, please.
Fantastic.
And I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who wished me a happy birthday. I got back to some of you really later because my phone kept having a mental breakdown. It gets hot and I need a new phone. So I left the wonderful laptop here that does like the same freaking thing here in these studios. So I have to personalize everything, as you know, as everybody saw. So again, thank you. And Christopher, he gave me an awesome cake, and I will be putting pictures up soon of them.
That's right. Last week we were talking about the cake
on them.
And your birthday was Sunday, but on Saturday when we did our Bigfoot and the Bunny show, I did want to have a cake and do it on the air because I'm just like such a sentimental guy.
Spoils the hell out of me. So,
but I ended up getting the cake, and we did it Sunday.
Yeah.
And
well, no, we did it Saturday night too. I had a mouse play to me with drums.
Oh yeah, right. That was fun. We were out with our friends Steve Auclair and Herb Travis.
Yep.
Who may or may not be listening to us right now.
Yeah,
I understand they're at a party. Yeah, we had a good time, and I made a Chuck E. Cheese joke in a Japanese restaurant.
Yeah.
And a guy came over with like a big mouse head mask and like a drum, and he was beating the drum, and they're going, "Happy birthday."
I'm like, I was so embarrassed.
I was like, what's going on? I felt like I was having a flashback or something. It was pretty weird, but yeah, that happened.
Yep.
That was cool.
Thank you. It was fun. It was
29 again. And you tried
great.
Sushi for the first time.
I was just gonna say I've hated sushi. I never wanted to try it, but since we had scorpion bowls, that's sometimes we like those. It's one of our things. I looked at this thing and I said to him, "What is that called?" And all three of them go, "Oh, it's called like sexy salmon."
It was the sexy salmon.
So
sexy salmon.
I looked at all three of them and I said, "Say it's wrapped in bacon." And they all just look at me and I'm like, "Now just tell me it's wrapped in bacon." So all three of them at the same time said, "It's wrapped in bacon." I'm like, "Cool, give me some." And it was actually really good. But the other ones, I will not try.
It was awesome.
That one was
it was
really
stuff
good.
like avocado and
cream cheese. It was
and
wicked good.
Crab meat. The crab meat was awesome.
Like
it was like real crab. It was like stringy crab meat in there. They're all wrapped in like a little salmon shell. Sexy salmon.
Yeah. Hello, beautiful people from Anne Marie Young. Hi, Greg Koss.
How you doing, Courtney
Hi,
Peterson? And you guys are great.
Thank you,
all.
Greg.
Thank you. And the happy birthday. There you go, Greg Koss. Awesome. Shadow Hunters Paranormal.
Yes.
And we're looking forward to coming on there. And Greg's going to be coming on our show pretty soon.
Yes.
So that is definitely something to look forward to. We're going to get in deep. We're going to talk some ITC as well, I think, because Greg and I may own the only, well, this may have changed. I don't know. But we were the first purchases of the Nanocom 2 from Katie Stafford,
which we will be taking out
shortly. And I see the Wizard's Table. That is Ken Allen. What's
the
up,
Wizard's
buddy?
Table.
What is going on? And I see Robert Honings. Greetings, friends.
Hi, Robert. Please tell I was just going to talk about her too. Your wife
Bridget.
That we said hi, Bridget. Yeah, I need to buy some new things from her. I love Bridget Honings.
Bridget Honings has like some of the best crystal stuff you can get out there.
They're just handmade and they're really beautiful the way she does the intricate design, and there are all kinds of stones and things, and it's Bridget Honings Creations. Please go there. It's
very
on Facebook.
Personalized.
Yes.
And we're big fans. We've bought quite a few.
A lot of stuff. Yeah.
Bridget, I want a kickback of at least 5%. Greg says we had a metaphysical and paranormal event in Janesville, Wisconsin this weekend, so I was locked up.
Oh dear.
Yeah, well, we dig the paranormal and the metaphysical.
I am not
But-
one to be locked up. He can. We're good with that.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. I got a debate with that being locked up. What?
Okay, no. Again,
Tim Smith says, hello from Hurley, Wisconsin.
hi Tim.
So, anyways, we want to talk about this 1,500 plus page report of UFO abduction phenomena.
Mhm.
It's stuff we've been talking about, but more in particular, we have a surprise guest for you who talks about it on a pretty regular basis. And clearly, he is justified and has been, handed the, yeah, you were right.
All
Soda
along.
Reward, because this just came out from ATIP. Let me go over this a little bit real quick.
OSAP or ATIP, but this is there's over 1,500.
It's 1,574 pages from the Pentagon, but it was the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program, otherwise known as ATIP, and that's Lou Elizondo. I'm sure all you are familiar with, and you've seen in different medias talking about. And the phenomena isn't always as pleasant as it's presented by certain individuals. Our guest is a really great friend of ours. We love him, and we really appreciate him coming on last minute. His name is Nathaniel J. Gillis. He's a demonologist and a ufologist, among many other things. He's a hell of a guy, and he's a great friend of ours. So let me bring him right on. Hey, buddy.
What's up, guys?
Hey, buddy.
Isn't that our interviews?
I gotta wish Kristen another 29th birthday.
There you go. Thank you so much.
Very good, very good.
That's what I had on the cake.
That's what he had on the cake.
I
I'm
literally
like,
did. I
oh,
bought
that
it
is-
too.
Did you really?
I
Oh
did.
my god.
I am going to put pictures, so I have to crop them. So, yeah,
Cool.
he's
I
awesome.
wish I was there to celebrate with you guys. You know how much I love y'all.
Oh, you'll
love
be here
you
soon
too.
enough, man. You're coming up in June.
Mhm.
We're psyched.
Oh yeah, man. I'm
We're
excited.
gonna hang.
Yeah. You know me, guys. Like whenever I visit Rhode Island, it's because my research got too dark and too deep, and I have to kind of take a break for a little bit. But we got a good topic tonight, guys. Holy smokes!
What a week, right? Like
What in the world?
It's just dropped. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, the
There it
first report, we were like, Psh, we figured it wouldn't, say much. But this one now, I mean, my God.
there's a lot of stuff.
You,
There's radiation burns. We can start with that. Electromagnetic burns. People being too close to the unidentified craft. There's been reports of this for years, but here it is coming out from the government, and they're validating it. There are medical cases that are validated as far as these like radiation like burns go. I think it's something like at least 42 of them are validated by doctors. They're right there. They know that they got the real thing. It's not just a story they typed and sent off into the internet.
Right.
These people were injured.
They're injured, and what's wild to me is, I mean, my God, ufology for now, like for decades, has been telling people, hey, listen, we have photographs. You know what I mean? Researchers, we have photographs. And the government was never willing to say, hey, listen, we know that's real. And now we have literally, I mean, John Keel, Bud Hopkins, Barney Hill, all these individuals,
Validated.
they're all vindicated and validated. And I think it's really interesting. I mean, I'm in a weird position. While I love the fact the government is giving us some form of what we would call disclosure, I also have a problem with them delivering it through the Sun magazine.
Oh, yes.
Right. Well,
You ever think about that?
Yeah.
They're the ones that made the
It's
request.
very interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they made a Freedom of Information Act request, upon the government, and it was, heated, and they gave it to them. I mean, there's certainly redactions and names are left out.
Of course.
The redactions are kind of interesting in the subject of themselves as to why they redact certain information, but they gave them over 1,500 pages of pretty good information, right?
Right. It's all fascinating, man. I'm excited though because it says that tells us that a lot of researchers who knew what was going on the whole time, but were leaning on the government to validate their research, now they're vindicated.
Mm-hmm.
You know
The
what I mean?
report was titled "Anomalous, Acute, and Subacute Field Effects on Human and Biological Tissues." It investigates injuries to human observers by anomalous advanced aerospace systems, and the report, prepared by the DIA, warns that such objects may be a threat, of course, to the United States interests. But the exposures, especially airborne and when in close proximity, include such things as like hair loss, headaches, fever, nightmares, nosebleeds, burnt skin, heart palpitations,
Cellular
burns.
breakdowns. I mean, it's ridiculous. Same.
Absolutely.
Been saying this for a very long time. There you have it.
Right. The report added that it had 42 cases for medical files and 300 similar unpublished cases where humans had been injured after anomalous encounters. So, that's not a good outlook. That's not, hey, they're here to save us and, turn off the nukes and, you guys going to kill yourself. So we're going to help you out.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Right. I think that the threat narrative has been it's been confused. Like, if you go on UFO Twitter, we have a lot of researchers who don't know the data, like they haven't researched enough to get a grasp of the phenomenon.
Right.
And so what happens is they make decisions based on data they don't have. But I think that, we do have case studies and documented abduction accounts where, hey guys, not only is it the fact that they can affect your skin physically and these beings or these ships can affect you physically, there's a spiritual aspect to it as well. And I think that it's very troubling to me because if you remember in the movie X-Files, the Man in Black used to get his information from publications no one else would believe existed. Right? But they were sending him information because he knew, hey, listen, this is real stuff. So it's a very weird situation going on here because it's almost as if, hey, are we getting our information from the government? If the government wanted us to believe something that's so magnificent, like most of the time, nobody would believe their data. I think that's what we're getting to. And so they feel the only way that they could communicate this phenomenon to people is to people who would believe in it. And who would believe in this.
Right.
This makes sense. So it's very troubling to me.
And they mix
too.
Truth with fiction. Oftentimes, things they know are wrong. There's certain video and photographs that have been debunked, along with ones that people cannot debunk. And it's the same kind of story that goes on, just enough to question things so that people can write it off. Because we're all kept way too busy. We're all kind of like the sheep and you're busy with work. You got a lot of things going on. Our lives are busy. It's a common thing. It's a 1% that's kind of like pushing everything. And I don't want to get into conspiracy, but oh my God, I see it all the time. I see it in things like going to Walmart, for example. You're assumed a criminal when you walk into Walmart because they need to check.
Let me get that receipt for a second. Let's go look at it.
Why is that the only store that needs to do that? Right? Really? Nothing is on sale.
It's the cheapest. It's the cheapest, by the way. Like you know what I mean? It's weird. It's like
you're assumed to be a felon when you walk in.
If there was ever a store I wouldn't need to steal from, it's Walmart.
Right. That owns Walmart. One of the richest families in the world.
Yep.
Yet they got this rule. The one that's near my house, they got security guys. They're all huge. They're 7 feet tall and enormous, driving around in pickup trucks, some kind of security company making sure, there's not a problem at the Walmart.
Right.
But I can go over to the Target and there's none of this. Like none of this bullshit. It doesn't even exist.
Oh Lord,
What is it about the
it's
Walmart that's such a
crazy.
magnet? I think it's kind of
I don't know.
it's a subtle push, like you're a sheep. It's a subtle message that's being sent there. And absolutely the government knows a lot more than they're letting us know. If they're letting us know all this now, what else?
What do they know?
Exactly.
And I will say this, guys, because I think it's very important. It's a movement within our federal government that is it's remnants of what's called the Collins elite. And I read the Collins elite, and I read of it from Nick Redfern's work. And a lot of times, like even with Lou Elizondo will give dog whistles back to the Collins elite when he calls these abduction accounts kidnappings. That's a Collins elite term because, abductions don't happen with consent, And so, it's very interesting. But they do know what they're talking about. That's the troubling issue. It's not just that they know what they're talking about, but there's almost a supremacy about them. There's an hierarchy of government where, maybe one day you'll be an experiencer enough to include into our hierarchy, but we're the ones that are controlling and monitoring the real truth here. And I think it's troubling to us because, if there is a threat to us, I'd like to know. And so a lot of people, especially on UFO Twitter, they say, okay, are these any of these demons? We're not going to get into that, but we're talking about disclosure. Okay. But, disclosure is okay. The government believes there's demons. Lou Elizondo talked about that. There's people in the federal government who believes these individuals are demons. And they're, again, like I said, they're remnants of Collins elite. But I will tell you straight up, Steve Merritt told me straight up, without confusion, the British government believes the same thing. These are demons. So,
right. Steve
what's
Merritt,
happened is
he's a parapsychologist.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with him, great guy.
He's awesome too.
Dug a lot of ground in the field. Yeah, amazing guy. Yep.
Right, and what's really interesting is that we have people on UFO Twitter, and I'm just going to throw it out there, who believe that because they have an internet connection, they know more about the phenomenon than the federal government, number one, and number two, the Collins elite, who research the esoteric connections to this phenomenon. So we have our people who are saying, hey, listen, I know enough about it, say that it's not demons. Well, okay, fine. But by admitting that, you're saying that, hey, listen, your internet connection equates to every intelligence agency we have in this country and every intelligence agency they have in the UK. Not just that, but your best researchers in the UK are saying that as well. So I think that the question is surrounding, okay, what are demons? What we would consider to be demons? What do these governments know that they're not telling us, right? Because true disclosure is true disclosure. Unless there's a threat narrative, and Lou Elizondo has pushed this many cases.
Yes.
Many times he says, he's like, he goes, if you guys do the truth, it'll be a very somber world. Very, very, somber and sobering. So, but, that's where I got to where I am in the field. I started discovering different behavioral patterns throughout history that demons had. I don't care what we call them. I really don't.
It's only a label.
It's
a label. Yeah. It's a consciousness that's bigger than us.
Right.
If it's not bigger, it's got things we don't understand. Like we can't see it.
That's a good point, man.
Our perceptions are so limited. Our brains are wired to just make sense out of everything that we see. That's where pareidolia comes from, right? And we start to see things in the clouds that are faces that aren't really there, but there's a reason for that. And we're very conditioned in our own experience as humans to see and acknowledge and understand, a very simple plan. That it does have something that can be outside of that plan. It doesn't even make sense to the brain. It can happen so fast the brain doesn't even recognize it anyways.
Right. The optical nerve. I mean, what do we see? Like 33% of everything. I have issue with that.
Through the light spectrum, right?
Right.
Electromagnetic
Why?
spectrum.
Why? Just because of microwaves and stuff? No, there's other things that
There
we
might be
just
reasons
can't
why we're
see.
conditioned to be this, and there might be reasons why we are sheep
good
at the
point.
end of the day.
Very good point. There's three kinds of knowledge. There's the unknown, there's the known, and then there's the unknowable.
Nice.
And we're trying right now in the field, we're groping in the darkness, trying to understand, okay, hey guys, is this the unknown? Do we not know it? Is this the known? Do we know it? Or is this the complete unknowable? Right? Where like we it doesn't matter, how many researchers we have. We could, this phenomenon could have literally hacked us biologically, where it's not simply evading our awareness. Literally, there's no awareness we have that could recognize it or measure its existence, right? So it's alien to us in that we are not even designed or allowed to comprehend the magnitude of its presence. And I think that's the reality we're living in, I mean, that's every researcher's life work, trying to decipher between the unknown, the known, and the unknowable.
Yeah, and
What we do know
into the paranormal field, when you're trying to look at something that maybe a discarnate spirit or something like that, you can't totally see it. You might get a glimpse of it if it is willing to show you.
You're exactly.
And it seems like there's work on both sides to even make that happen, right? You almost have to have those clairvoyant or mediumistic talents, or something, or a feel for it.
Right.
And it has to want to show itself. And it will show itself in a way it wants to be seen. And I see this
very
same
important
thing in alien abduction phenomena. I think that's why we see the grays. We see them so often, or certain characteristics almost pulled from the person. What they expect to see is what they will see.
And that's very interesting. And I've heard that hypothesis. One thing that has really stuck out to me is two things. They're both included in the UFO abduction phenomenon. Number one, we have experiencers who are thinking that they're being abducted bodily, right? So the physical body is being abducted, and then and only after the abduction begins and ends, and they become physical again, do they realize that these entities had literally, in one case, it said they sucked her mind out of her body.
Like a download.
Well, an upload. Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And so,
somewhere on.
Yeah.
So then when they become physical, they realize, oh my God, I wasn't abducted bodily at all. It was my soul or my apparition they abducted. That's number one. And, another issue is this, that we have case studies and abduction accounts where these grays that people are seeing, it's almost like a projection of these beings, where it's not them, it's an image they're projecting, to the point where we have case studies where the abductee turns and looks at the being sideways, and it looks completely different than what it looks like when it's turned straight ahead. So what it leads me to believe is that we're dealing with apparitions, an apparitional, tangible entity who can, again, if we look at these case studies, they can walk through the wall by dematerializing and then solidify in our presence by materializing. We know that kind of behavioral pattern could be because we've seen in hauntology via apparitions.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So there's a compounded interest. It's almost like, it's very interesting. It's something about this phenomenon that has intimate knowledge about consciousness, apparitions, and the way we would perceive ourselves once we are out of the body. Right? Not just that, but how we would perceive them too. And so I think both of those are very important, because I would suggest that at least some of these entities are not grays as we would like in terms of like physical touch, gray flesh and blood. That these are apparitions again who have the ability to pluck memories out of our mind, pluck images out of our mind, and then become that memory to us. And that's a whole other direction because I believe that's a hacking of the mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I know like part of that disclosure, given to the sun.com involved things like cloaking devices. So like this does not seem far off at all.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
they're basing it on things like even comic books, like, light abstraction and, being able to turn it. And there's some real tech behind it that people are working on in the real world as we know it right now. And apparently they have this mastered. But it's fascinating,
It's troubling to me because like dealing with apparitions. I was on Strange Recon podcast probably about a month or two ago. There was a lady that had followed my research and my interviews, and she said that she had. I don't know how much I could say on here because how many shows I do. I don't know some things I could talk about on different shows, and I can't talk about on others.
Yeah.
Okay.
Safe.
She thought that she was having intercourse with her husband, and she said that after everything was said and done, that she said her husband stood by the neck, like right next to her at bed, turned his head and grinned, and she said that's when she started noticing that there were certain facial features about her husband she no longer recognized.
It's so creepy.
And then that entity grinned and then walked into the hallway and devolved, literally dematerialized into a smoky apparition and disappeared. Then she rolled over and realized her husband had been next to her asleep the whole time. Right? So again, I would love for researchers out there to say this is love and light because I think this is absolute. What up, Dr. Lynch? What's up, baby boy? Oh yeah, dude.
Dr. Michael Lynch
We will be having him on.
He's going to be on next week, next Thursday.
You're doing good with Dr. Lynch to say you're doing good.
Oh,
What's up, man?
He's awesome.
Oh hell yeah. So yeah, and so it's obvious, to me. I think that that's deceit. I mean that goes without saying. And and a lot of evangelical researchers have discovered this behavioral pattern where these entities will come specifically to women and to men too. And then, to men, it's always or usually a female, and they'll, work a program. They'll extract the seed. Then they'll appear to women in the image of a man, and then they'll inseminate the woman with the seed they just collected.
Right.
Okay? We would call that the modern UFO abduction phenomenon. However, we have texts in the late Iron Age that say that's been happening for thousands of years. So I'm sorry, Dr. Jacobs, this is not a modern phenomenon.
No, it's not.
What that tells me as a researcher is that you've limited yourself to a portion of time, and this is really bad to say, and then you point a finger right in the heart of that time period and say, I'm willing to say this is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's bad research. That's awful research because you've got to look. You have to go deep and wide. You have to go everywhere to get the best data sample you can have before you can deduce a conclusion. And I'm gonna start rambling, but that's what I'm saying. Like this is a huge big deal. It's a big deal, and it's not a modern phenomenon. It's been here forever. These entities have, and they know how to manipulate our senses just enough to be present with but absent from at the very same time.
They do. They do.
Yeah.
Lakota Indians, for example.
Thank you.
Have a big story about, the Devil's Tower Park.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to read something here from, it actually comes from a webpage called moviemaker.com. It's part of my research today talking about it. A Lakota story of extraterrestrial intervention is the legend of geological formation called the Devil's Tower National Monument in Crook County, Wyoming. And I know everybody's familiar with like that. It's the the Close Encounters,
So the
you
third
know,
kind.
big tower kind of thing. But according to the story, you know, a long time ago, we don't know when, a female being fell from Earth from the star world and died with her newborn baby beside her. Okay. As legend tells it, a group of young Lakota boys were out playing when they found the woman lying dead. They brought her baby back to the tribe, where he was raised by an older Lakota woman named, I'm not going to attempt that, but it means fallen
Okay.
star, you know. And what they go on to say is that they are related to us by DNA. The aliens are related. They have stories that are very tied in to things like the sound like the Anunnaki, where they came and manipulated our DNA to create slaves for whatever reason. You know, in the native peoples, the indigenous cultures also have these same stories of star people that came from the skies and changed things. And there it is. It's like the missing link, you know, and it's repeated through cultures all through the world that are unrelated. And why is that? I mean, it's right there. You know, there's some information that nobody takes too seriously unless you're just watching Ancient Aliens, and
that's
which we're not trying to quote in any way.
No.
I mean, this is actual research.
We actually have theories on this. So
there's something there.
I mean, okay, so I'm kind of confounded. You know, I research most of my day. Like that's what I do. So like it's literally an existential crisis if I don't read. Like because I have ADHD, you know, and it's a big deal. Like reading is therapy to me. And so, you know, when you start literally relying on literature to save your life, you start learning stuff. And I've encountered people on Twitter who, you know, they're very arrogant because, you know, they think they're gods. Oh, well, I am a contributor to Ancient Aliens. And you start asking them questions. Matter of fact, I asked the guy, I said, okay, what do you know about the Katamua inscription? He thought I meant Kathmandu because he thought I was an idiot. He said, oh, you mean Kathmandu? I said, no, I would have said Kathmandu. I said Katamua. Oh, right. Well, you know, and then out of nowhere, I'm a contributor. I don't care. See, what's happened is a lot of these TV shows, they will only allow contributors who will help them push their narrative, right? It's not independent research. It's independent finances. I have enough finances, and I'll help you do this.
Exactly.
So that's what I realized very quickly.
You know, it's how it works. It's all about the money, one way or another.
Agreed.
It comes down to it.
Yep.
Truth doesn't matter anymore.
No, it doesn't seem to.
Everything and nothing is real, right?
Yeah. It's troubling, and maybe I should have said that. God forgive me. But, you know, it's annoying. It's annoying because as a researcher, you know what you're talking about, you know, and yet, I don't know. I don't know. So what I'm saying is, okay, getting back to the subject here, this information's been around forever. And I think that just as we have, you know, Indian literature that talks about, in Japanese, all that, talking about people falling from the stars, I believe that Hebrew literature also included them as fallen angels. I think that this is a narrative that has, you know, it's been around everywhere. And so I think that it's incumbent upon a good researcher, not a dogmatist, right? A good researcher, it's his or her responsibility to stretch their consciousness in every direction to get enough information as they can. And if you're not willing, you're a lazy researcher. Get out of the field.
Yeah,
exactly.
Read between the lines. You know what is
that's awful. Yeah,
really saying. We don't use it.
Sorry,
but when you're reading like a biblical text or something out of antiquity,
right?
You know, read it. You know, don't just follow the narrative, but like what is it saying? What is really there? What are the points that are made? You know, it's very important. There is hidden codes within some of these things, for sure. Especially the Bible. It's ridiculous when you get into numerology, and if you talk to somebody like Randall Carlson, like, oh my God, how did they possibly know these things? These numbers keep turning up.
Gematria and all that,
Wow, it's sick. You're like, oh my God, so there's something
It's
to it.
fascinating.
It was handed
It-
down,
it's-
obviously, from a culture before them,
way before them.
and that's why those stories survive, because they were extremely important,
Exactly.
Correct.
at that
Yeah.
time.
We were just talking about last night about things being made of stone.
Right.
You know,
in today's world, like
the
it's
metal breaks
not
down and
a big to do to have something made of stone. It's like kind of a, in the park, we got a statue or whatever.
Right.
That's the thing.
but that would survive.
Over time,
Right.
the metal dissolves way before the stone. Stone is the only thing that survives, and that's why we go back and look at these ancient civilizations and go, "Oh yeah, there's a pyramid. There's, these kind of clues that there was more going on than we know."
Mhm.
I
Right.
think at one time that we think that in the Pangea we may
Yes.
have had cultures and civilizations that we'll never know about.
Nope.
That are
Things
just
have
lost to
sank.
time, and they're now underwater, or
Yeah, they
catastrophic events took them out.
They found what is it? Zealandia next to New Zealand or in between New Zealand and Australia a few years back. It's like a continent that literally sank. Who's to say how many other continents out there have sank?
Right.
Right.
And Plato
Maybe-
was not a stupid person,
Right.
and he was talking about
Right.
Atlantis. He clearly was a very intelligent individual. So
The Rapa Nuis, they talk about
Yeah.
Lemuria.
he
Plato
probably didn't make
talks
it up.
about Atlantis.
You hear the story from someone. You know
Right.
what I mean?
So
And that's a good way to put it. Our ancient ancestors used what's called mythopoeic thought, and so they would take all their myths and they would put those myths into poetry as a vehicle of meaning, and then so they would create poetry, and then through the verbal language, they would stretch all these myths, legends, and actually experiences to the next generation. They didn't have Twitter, they didn't have Facebook, they didn't have YouTube, right? And so the best thing they could do is hold their babies in their arms and tell them about an experience they had.
oral.
I just got chills.
Yeah,
This is
it's
right.
awesome.
It's like
We got to
songs,
catch this.
right,
We
poetry
got to
would survive
And
longer.
so,
Mhm.
right, hoping, literally implanting their memories into their progeny. Your grandfather experienced a being, and I'm going to tell you about it, right? Hoping that their experience would stretch the longevity of their children's lifetime enough to get to our ears in the 21st century to say, hey, listen, we have a story to tell.
Mhm.
Now, what's happened in modern ufology is we want to shut them up unless it fits the narrative.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
So so we have experiencers that thought these entities were demons, and so ufology says, well, that's dogmatic. We don't want to do it. By doing that, you're equally as dogmatic, because you're rejecting data sample that doesn't fit your narrative because you don't believe in it. Who cares what you believe? The phenomenon doesn't care either. If we strip the dogma from the data, who cares? Yeah, they call these entities demons. Look, I'm a demonologist. Get rid of that. And let's ask the real important question. What were these people experiencing? What were the descriptions of the beings they were encountering? Because I'm telling you guys, it's the same phenomenon. And I can't stress it enough. And we're going to get into pregnancies and all that stuff. But that's just another interconnectivity that even UFO Twitter. I just got on Twitter, by the way, and I'm not hearing anything about this stuff.
Interesting.
They're not even talking about it. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, it's almost like we've been conditioned to just accept this stuff and just go,
Yeah.
There's something to that. There's absolutely something to that, because this report is huge news. Here it is. Our government is saying, okay, here are the reports, and some of which are medically backed up. They're not just made up reports. There's doctors, commenting on them. People were burnt. They were hurt. The pregnancy thing is wild, and I know we'll get into
burns,
that.
I mean, alone. So
it's real. So like this
real.
stuff happened. They're coming out finally saying it. Stuff we've known all along. When we talk about demons and demonology, one of the things that came up was soot.
Yes.
I know from my own path work in the occult in my past, I've done some pretty dark but very cool path work And that was one of the things I was taught, was that you work with demons, there's going to be soot. Soot is left, and it is. When you do that kind of work, it's different than dealing with discarnate spirits. There it is. And it's coming out in the report.
So yeah, and what's really interesting too is there's an interconnectivity between ufology and hauntology.
Mhm.
And I promise you, and it seems so obvious to us, and yet I know researchers that are 70 plus years old who like, I had one guy tell me that the old hag was just the conquering, the death of ego is the old hag, and I thought that's
Bullshit.
okay. It's
Right.
complete horseshit. And
Yep.
what's crazy is, and I reached out to a friend of his. I'm like, look, dude, if this is the best and brightest in the field, we got a problem, because the old hag was the succubus throughout all history. You can't just go
Hundreds
out
of
there
years
and just create your own legend.
records of the old hag, the crone.
It blew my mind, but I'm telling you, this is okay. This is what a lot of ufology follows. It's horseshit. It's not good research. It's a complete collapsing of intellectualism, and then these same people will go out to people and say, you know what, this is what I think it is, and a lot of people will buy into it. I should have said that. Are we good for me saying that word horse?
You can say what words you want.
Listen,
All
this
right.
is safe haven. You can say whatever you want.
Okay, so it's absolutely a dark day in the field, because these are the people that are telling their followers that these entities are not demonic, and I'm thinking, dude, again, they're going to follow that ignorance because they're trusting you. They're trusting your research, and if you're thinking the old hag mounts a man because she's trying to conquer his ego, you have completely dissolved yourself of relevance, because the old hag is the succubus. The succubus comes from Lilith spirits. Lilith, and I'm getting on a rant. Lilith in Hebrew mythology,
I love this topic.
Phoenician text, it's a little spirit. It's a ghost that sucks and milks the carcasses of the dead in antiquity, specifically of men, takes the semen, throws it in a female to create a hybrid species. That's not the death of ego. It should be the death of that researcher's ego. Maybe one day he'll just stop talking,
right?
Because that's not true. And so we have our people who just, I don't understand it, because I hold my research to a standard, and I hold everyone's research to a standard. That's why I'm friends with you guys. If I don't like your research, I'm not talking to you. I don't care. Like, I'll be on your show and everything, but I'm not going to associate myself with you because it's bad blood and stuff. But
you understand.
That's where we're at in the field. That's where we're at in the field.
Oh, it is.
Old hag.
It's turned now
into death of ego.
turned into sleep paralysis,
Oh,
which is now a medical condition. Yeah, I think it is total horseshit. You're in that hypnagogic state.
Yep.
And you're frozen. And yes, there are bodily functions that kind of paralyze your body, but it does not mean you're supposed to have some out-of-body experience with an alien and then have scars left over.
Exactly.
Like physical
choking you while she's sitting on top of you. I mean, I've heard all
exactly. There's hundreds of years of that. I had the old hag experience myself. We've talked
and he
about
didn't
this
even know
off air, and
had
that story.
Was.
Yeah,
So
you know what? Chris, you know
there.
why you had the old hag syndrome, right? You had it because you were so egocentric. Right?
Yeah.
That's the scapegoat. That's the gaslighting I'm seeing in the field.
Yeah.
Utter nonsense.
Exactly.
I will tell you my own experience.
You're right.
I was with my ex. We were engaged. I was researching, but I was, I'd never done a podcast before, never done a show. And it was Friday. It was Saturday morning, Friday night. And I had gotten off work. She made me a sandwich and everything. We watched something on the TV. We're in bed. I'm asleep. She's asleep. It's like 3:00 in the morning, and I go into this dream. Oh, it's gonna be good. You're gonna like it. I go into this dream. In this dream, I feel a presence, a spiritual entity in the dream, and in the dream, I'm being mounted by this shadow woman, featureless image. And I know, because if you guys, I know you guys do, but people that have listened to me or listen to me now, look at all my interviews, all my research. I know at least portion of spirituality. I know when I'm being attacked, at least. And I knew this was a spiritual event. I thought, oh my God, this is nuts. There's something here, and I'm in a war. I'm battling something. And so I intend to wake myself up. I'm going to wake myself up because I don't like this. It's a nightmare. And when I wake myself up, my eyes open, and that entity is in the room, not in my dream.
Exactly.
And I'm looking at this featureless shadow figure that looked, I thought it was my fiance. I thought, I didn't know what she was doing. Just put it that way. And I'm looking at her, and my eyes are adjusting to the darkness. And I realize that by now I should start seeing facial features, but I'm not seeing facial features. And then I see it lean over and look at me sideways, and just stare at me. So I start shaking my fiance awake. And I said, oh my God, is that you? Is that you? Is that you? Is that you? She goes, what are you talking about? I said, that wasn't you? She said, no. Like, what's wrong with you? And I said, okay. Oh, thank God. But we're gonna get into this narrative here, in this behavioral pattern. It was a dream state, but it was a physical reality.
Exactly.
And that's a hook, right? It's right into our stuff tonight.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Dream states are something we've been studying a bit lately, because there are certain things about dreams that just there's no real good explanation for. The state of familiarity in a dream, where you're in a place and you just know the place, yet in your
You've
conscious
never been there.
woken up mind, you have no idea what it is, but you can walk around it and you're having a vivid dream that you will recall 30 years from the time you have it, and you know exactly what's in the room off to the left, and you know where you are.
I went through 3 different timelines a couple of months ago.
It's in the timelines, right?
I was doing hemisync, and a couple of days I took off from it, and I went to 3 different timelines, and they were very real, very lucid. I know I can still tell you the floor plans, exactly what happened. Told them again last night. I've never done that before that I know of.
That sense of knowing, like the floor layout and stuff like
I have
that.
no idea where it was.
Download. It's like you get all that information, and it comes instantly. And we had simultaneously, we had these crazy for like a month. And get the idea that you were in a different timeline and living this other reality, which makes you wonder about what sleep really is,
what's really going on.
Exactly.
And there isn't really a great explanation. Obviously the body needs to rest. We know that. We know you'll die.
But what the hell is our brain doing?
But it's
that's
almost
resting.
Your goes wild, and it goes other places. So we start to wonder, all right, people theorize things like all things and all answers are happening at the same time. Maybe you're slipping into the other timelines that exist around you in possibly a parallel universe,
right?
Which I know that sounds a little out there to some of us, but I starting to give it a little bit of credence based on some of the dreams.
It's interesting, like I was telling my dad today. I remember having a dream about 5 years ago where I walked out of a house, turned to the left. It was a very vivid dream, and I came across what I would consider to be a youth group, like a church youth group. It's very weird. And at the first dream, I said, hey, I said, how you guys doing? They said, I'm good. Okay, whatever. Dream ends. 2 years ago, same dream, walked out of the same house, onto the same sidewalk. I walked over there, the same thing, exact same way, same footsteps, everything. And the people I had met 5 years ago had aged.
Come on.
Swear to God, hand to God. And the same individual I had met, it was a young guy, he looked over at me and he said, man, I haven't seen you in a little bit. How you been?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Very trippy. And I said, I'm doing good. I said,
there she is again or something in her timeline.
I knew I'd see you again.
Yeah, it's you again. Yeah.
It's very strange.
It's almost like deja vu. Deja vu.
Yeah.
Can't talk. Yeah, deja vu. Where does this come from? Where does these senses of just knowing that you've experienced something before, the familiarity and dreams?
Right.
people recognizing you in dreams, you recognizing them but not being able to place their name and
Nope.
that kind of thing.
Right.
It gets a little weird. Now, granted, a lot of dreams are just kind of senseless things that came on during
But
the day.
these
But
are
people
different,
recognize
right?
that fetus,
Oh, yes. Yes.
All right.
fetuses have
Before we
dreams.
get into that,
They go into REM states. Like,
Yeah,
what could
here's a
they
question.
possibly dream about?
I got to go let my dog out real quick. Is that okay? Can you like turn my microphone and my camera off?
Yeah.
Is that okay? For like 2 minutes. I'll be right back.
It's
Is that all
fine.
right?
It's
That's
absolutely
great.
okay.
Nate, not a
All
problem.
right. I'll be right back. All right. Keep
All right.
talking about yourself because we got to get into this missing fetus syndrome. And I don't know how much time we have, but I have as much time as you guys need.
We got to have whatever we need to make it happen.
All right. I'll be right back. Okay. Sorry, guys.
Okay. Hey, I'm
All right.
extremely sorry. I got to Dr. Michael Lynch. My computer had a mental breakdown as usual. So
And some of your comments coming up for some reason are not populated and just say your name like that. But we're going to talk next week. We're going to talk next week. Joshua Dixon
yes.
had a long thing here. Let me see. I'm confused because some say it's aliens or ghosts that are the incubus or succubus. My friend swears she had 2 water sacs when she gave birth to her son. She swears it was an alien who stole her baby girl twin. I just listened to her without judgment, but she said that doctors were baffled and her son said there were things on the roof as he became a toddler. Not sure if this is relevant to the conversation.
Oh, this is definitely relevant. And that is, wow.
Wow. That is a very good story.
Great story.
Yeah,
wow.
I do definitely want to bounce that off of Nate.
Yes.
But
yes.
something may have happened. And it is weird. Like, doctors are so busy. They say things in a moment. And it's not like they're going to sit there and research everything that happens. And they probably have a lot of really good stories. And they just seem to be unexplainable. Right? So, the other child grows, thinks there's things on a roof, was a haunted childhood. I'm not surprised.
Right.
2 water sacs. Wow.
Wow.
That's good. That's good. That's good stuff. Thank you, Joshua.
Yes, thank you. He also said embryos. Yeah, that dream.
Right.
What the heck is
they
they dream about? That's what we're trying to figure out.
What science does know, and we guess that the science is proven, is that they go into REM states. So, a fetus will have REM states and appears to dream. What they could possibly dream of, I don't know. Do they dream of the same swishing blood and
that's what I was thinking, or a past
bodily functions that they observe during the day?
Yeah.
Like science tends to say that's all dreams are, just the reflections of the day. Like there's nothing, there's no story there. So what is the story the fetus tells, or sees or dreams about, I should say. Welcome back.
Hello, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. So, where were we, man?
We're talking about fetus and, in vitro dreaming.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
In utero, not in vitro.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Now get back to the cows.
Okay.
No.
Speaking of alien abductions.
Yeah, so this idea of dreaming, there's a lot of researchers that believe that we live in an inverted reality, and so that this is the dream, and what we would consider to be the dream is reality. I don't know. I look at the dream state that many abductees have encountered, and then the same dream state that experiencers in the Middle Ages and the late Iron Age. It's the same thing, These entities have the ability to kind of hypnotize people in a hypnagogic state where they're tempted, like their brain itself, it doesn't know what to believe in. Is this really happening to me, or is this a dream? Which one is reality? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, it's almost like a vulnerability, right? In a hypnagogic state. It's almost like you're more vulnerable. And I think we kind of go into those states when we're doing things like you're commuting to work and you have a 2-hour commute. You get to work and you go, wow, where did the time go? You just you have this kind of like time
Right.
loss. Anybody who
Right.
does that, understands how that works. You get used to it and your brain just goes on autopilot and you don't really remember how you drove there, right? You've been on a long drive, you
Absolutely.
have that experience. And that is like, I remember Terry Lovelace telling us
Yes.
about riding a bike and, just kind of spacing out. Next thing he knows, he lost, X many hours
like
and he woke up in a
6
ditch
hours?
somewhere. So
Yeah.
it was at least 6 hours. Yeah. And it felt like something had happened to him.
Yeah,
He-
it's strange.
He
It's
got
strange.
abducted.
Yeah, right.
That's what happened to him.
That's what happened.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said
It's
to him.
like, yeah. Well, something happened to him. He got
Okay, well-
abducted, of course. Yeah. Well, duh.
Right. Like it was hitchhiking out there or something.
Yeah.
It's weird. Okay, so like if we go into a dream, usually, we think it's like for hours. It's 2 minutes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or we'll think it's 2 minutes. That's 2 or 3 hours.
Right.
Very weird how it works. So this idea that because actually there was a question you guys put up here before I went with my dog. There was a question somebody asked. I thought it was ghosts or aliens.
Yes, it was Joshua Dixon.
Yeah, let me bring that up again.
This is
'cause
excellent.
This was an interesting.
Yeah.
Joshua says, I'm confused. Some say it's aliens or ghosts that are the incubus or succubus. My friend swears she had two water sacks when she gave birth to her son. She swears it was an alien that stole her baby twin girl. I just listened to her without judgment, but she said the doctors were baffled, and her son said there were things on the roof as he became a toddler. Not sure if this is relevant to the conversation.
It absolutely.
Okay, it's huge. Now, again, we need to realize that this sleep-inducing mechanism that we have witnessed throughout history, documented cases in UFO abduction, primarily, this was a mechanism used to control the female. Now, follow me, and that's a wild thought, but watch this. We know that because in the 16th century, in what are called possession cases, the debug phenomenon, there were women in Israel who were being visited by entities that were inducing them into dream states. So these women were actually having intercourse with these beings in dream states, thinking that this is a dream, it's not real.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it was consensual, most of it wasn't.
Okay.
It's a
Irrelevant.
little bit like Spanish Fly.
A little bit.
All right, it was a little joke. I'm sorry.
I know. I had to think about it. Wait a minute. Yeah.
Those
And-
were good for the 80s. Yeah.
God, I love you. Honest to God.
And
Sorry.
yeah, dude, if we don't laugh, we'll cry. Right.
Straight up.
So when these women woke up the next day thinking that was just a dream, it was very interesting because they had marks on their body that directly correlated with the assault they experienced in the dream.
Right.
Scarifications, bruises, fingerprints, or not fingerprints, but handprints and all that stuff. And then these entities mutated and not just assaulting them in the dream state, and then it was a real event, but they actually started to possess these women. Now these women were not just accosted by these beings, they were possessed by the entity that assaulted them. Then they evolved into something that's even more troubling, is that they not only possessed them, but they started impregnating the women they had accosted. And so amongst ufologists, and I saw people on UFO Twitter stumbling over themselves because a lot of people are, again, they're looking at ancient texts as nuts and bolts researchers. You're not going to make up scholarship, right? And vice versa. I'm not a scientist. I'm certainly not going to, indulge myself in those texts. Say I know what I'm talking about. No. So what happens is a lot of people will say, okay, well, why are these entities encountering women? Why are they assault? Are these entities sensual? Is it just because they find these women beautiful? I think, I would love to say that, all women are beautiful. I would love to, I do believe that to a sense, but that's not what these entities are doing. These entities are trying to self-replicate through women. They're using the dream state to do that. And again, this is again the missing fetus syndrome, which is exactly what this individual is talking about.
Right.
Now, the phenomenon itself is sneaky. It's sneaky. Dr. Carla Turner had a case study of an abductee who said that she was impregnated by these entities. And it did not survive full-term pregnancy. Okay,
Mhm.
it wasn't full-term, and so this is interesting. She said that she actually had passed the baby, gave birth to it, it had died, and she said she's looking at it in the bathroom. Dr. Carla Turner said, "Well, where is the fetus right now?" She said, "They programmed my mind to place the fetus in a glass jar and to bury that jar." She said, "So I can only remember enough to tell you what it looked like. I'm not allowed to remember what I did with it."
Wow.
Now,
That's
is that
Sneaky.
typical of the phenomena of the missing fetus? Is kind of like, do we hear this story repeated? That
It's
there's an
yeah.
unexpected pregnancy. They don't know how it happened. They were on birth control, whatever, and it happened, and then the fetus seems to go missing, and maybe they meet the fetus again, in
Yeah.
a hypnagogic state, like we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that's another issue. So, it's not limited to just them impregnating women with the physical fetus. Again, in the 16th century, it was them impregnating the woman with the consciousness that went into the fetus.
Mhm. Right.
Oh my God. This touches on something
Huge
very
point.
interesting.
Yeah, because then you think about the fetus dreaming with the REM state.
Right. It's capable of dreaming. It's capable of having these things. We don't know what it could possibly be dreaming of
Right.
if it wasn't things like past lives. I mean, think about it. When you wake up from a dream, it's almost like there's a wipe that happens, and
Exactly.
you immediately start forgetting the dream you were just having, even though you had, a half a dozen or more, maybe dozens of dreams the night before.
Mhm.
You can't remember any of them, and there's this like wipe effect that happens.
Exactly.
So what happens when a fetus has a dream, and what is that like? And
That's a good question. It's a very good question.
I don't know for everyone now. I mean,
it's hard to prove
it's
out
hard to prove.
for sure.
Well, it's a good question, man. It's it's a
people
mystery we
right.
haven't solved.
Yeah,
And
they
it's
disappear.
dude. I've had I had a lady reach out to me, because I was doing a show on the missing fetus syndrome and all that. And she said, "Look," she goes, "I'm going to share my story with you." She's like, "A lot of people won't believe me." She said, "But uh, this entity had came to her and verbally abused her and said that all of your children will be mine." And we're going to get into a subject here. It's going to be very dark, but I'm going to make sure that I can separate it to where people don't get the wrong idea. She said that from that experience, that abduction, she had 6 miscarriages.
Wow.
Right. Let's go to Dr. Carla Turner's work for a fleeting moment. She had an experiencer she was working with who was impregnated, a separate experiencer, was impregnated during an abduction. And she knew somehow, either the beings told her or she just knew it instinctually, that the child will not make it full term. Told her husband, it's not going to be full term. It's going to die. It dies, and then she's abducted. Okay, now watch this. She got pregnant in that abduction, from that abduction, not with her husband. And that's the distinction I want to make. They're not taking consciousness from babies that are coming from human to human, right? Not from a husband and wife or a wife and a lover. No, they're taking consciousness from children that they implant into wombs. That's a different issue.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Maybe that's gold.
Right. There's
right.
It's different than, me and my husband were intimate. I got pregnant and they took the baby. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm very sensitive about that. My mother, she experienced, I lost a brother to that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about an inorganic pregnancy that these entities issued. They authored. Okay. So, anyways, this lady is telling Dr. Carla Turner, and this is during a reverse, like it's a hypnosis session. They're going to this woman's subconscious, and she says, "Okay," she says, "I lost the baby." She said, "And then I'm abducted," and she starts crying at this point. She says, "I don't know, I don't understand it, Dr. Turner, but during this abduction, they hand me a hybrid baby." Now, remember. And she said the consciousness of the child I lost in my womb was in that hybrid baby. And she said it put me in a position where I wanted to love the consciousness in it because it's mine.
That's right.
She immediately had that familiarity
Right.
that we were just
Right.
talking about happens in dreams. We
Well,
just
that's it.
know.
It's not.
You know it's your job.
Right. So it's not just the fetus that they're inspiring. How about that? It's also, again, they have the ability to pluck consciousness out of them too, which leads me to my a theory that I'm working on, and I'm not. It's a hypothesis, but I believe a lot of us are focusing on the physicality, the physical nature of the fetus, without realizing that there's consciousness in it too.
Yeah, I agree.
No, we agree.
We were just talking about the word hypothesis.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's why you
kick a
me.
chair. It's like,
Joshua Dixon just said.
All right, yeah,
Nate
this is interesting.
I mean,
she thinks it was a breeding program,
Yeah.
an abduction, and no explanation from the doctors, even though they showed fear. They just wanted their money. She also
case.
it ties into dreams because she said she dreamt of visiting her baby in a glass liquid case. Well, this
imagine
sounds
that.
pretty familiar, right? I mean, it's
Right.
how many stories? Sometimes it's a brown liquid and the baby's suspended in the brown liquid. I you know this better than I. You know, there's a lot of cases of this.
Yeah, it's very unique. You know, this idea that they will increase the birth rate. See, if we look at the behavioral patterns, it's obnoxiously obvious. Increasing the birth rate in humanity, steal the fetus or the consciousness that's in it. Right? It's been happening, you know, even in Genesis 6. You know, it's really what's really weird is I have, you know, I come from an evangelical background. And so, you know, I know all the evangelical researcher stuff. I know where they come from. I know their text, all that. And so a lot of researchers will go to Genesis 6 and they'll talk about these giants. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. I would also, okay, while I am loving, I would also draw your attention to the fact that in Genesis 6, it says that when men begin to multiply, birth rate, Nephilim were in the land. What's Nephilim? Okay, watch this, guys. In that text, we didn't have Paleo Hebrew. See, Paleo Hebrew was. I'm sorry, we didn't have vowels. That was written in Paleo Hebrew. Paleo Hebrew had no vowels. If you read that text as it was originally written, it said we had stillbirths in the land.
Come on. Oh my goodness.
But they would, right? I mean, give them some credit here. Like there was a lot of birthing problems and stuff.
Right.
Then there was no birth control. There was no medical assistance.
Correct.
That sort of thing. However, go on.
Okay. They said Nephilim were in the earth. Okay, so let's look at this. Strip it from the vowels. We're looking at least in their experience, we're looking at the increase in birth rate, babies being born, and then somehow there's also an increase of I wouldn't just say missing fetus syndrome. How about missing consciousness syndrome? Right, where they started having it equally as it was equal to, okay, we have the birth increase also. We also have babies being born that were being born dead, stillbirth. So if we're to believe these are the same entities, like I said, it wasn't just I'm creating a fetus. I'm creating the fetus to steal the consciousness.
Right.
So they're both intertwined. You know, it's all the same thing. I mean, even in the 16th century, guys, the definition of dibuk in Hebrew was the impregnation of the dead in the bodies of the living. It's all surrounding this narrative of using our species
What it repeats
to
through
replicate themselves.
multiple cultures around the world.
Right.
You know, we can focus on the Hebrew, but you know, a lot of the stuff is happening everywhere, and you hear the same stories,
Mhm.
which is really the thing that people need to grasp here, because how can it not be true if you have multiple cultures retelling the same stories? Oh, the aliens came down, some of the sky, winged creatures, whatever they were,
Yep.
changed their culture, you know, absolutely inseminated in some way. I talked
Mhm.
about the Lakota Indians before a little bit, not so well, but yeah,
The
devil's
Mayan,
power,
the Incan, the Olmec, the
same kind of stories.
Toltecs.
These exist around the globe.
And it's
Yeah.
you're right. It's the same behavioral patterns. And like I say, you know, I couldn't care less. Oh my God, I don't believe in demons. The phenomenon doesn't care what you believe. It doesn't care what I believe. And so now in my research, I'm thinking about, you know, like, but what is it doing? I don't have to name it to know what it's doing. Like, you know what I mean? So what is it? It's doing the same stuff, guys.
Right.
You're right. You're right. Same energy, different labels. It's the same phenomenon. It just wears different masks. I mean, it's, you know, to Muslims, it appears as Muhammad. You know,
Right.
there was a case in, I think it was again another Dr. Carl Turner case study where Jesus appeared to an abductee, held his hand out, and said, "All seed is mine."
Mm.
And then she continued to have miscarriages. Why? Again, we got to make the demarcation here. It was inseminating her and then plucking the baby or the consciousness out of the baby.
Also terrifying her.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
things
It's
that
very, very
saying
troubling.
things that
Scaring the shit out of
would
her.
scare her, and
Yeah.
that reminds me of like near death experiences, right?
Yeah.
Like we've had a ton of NDEs on our show, and they're all Western NDEs, and they tend to tell similar stories of what happens when they have that near death experience. But if you go into Eastern cultures, they have a different experience because the culture expects it.
Right. That's a very unique situation. And I think that our dear
Because of time
elder,
there.
the anointed one, Lou Elizondo, has mentioned this in his interviews.
Mm.
See, again, he'll give dog whistles out to people who know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. He mentions abductions as kidnappings. Again, that's exclusively Collins Elite stuff. Collins Elite, they called them kidnappings because you cannot measure consent.
That's
So
true.
they just went off the, you know, their kidnappings. Anyways, one of his dog whistles is just the fact that he talks about these kidnappings and then he talks about pregnancies sometimes, but he's all about it. He's all about it. And I think that he hints at this stuff, okay? It's almost like he can't tell us directly. He's hoping that we'll pick up what he's putting down enough to say, okay, yeah, you know what I mean? We get
Make
it.
some sense out of it. For our audience who doesn't know, can you tell us a little bit more about the Collins Elite?
Yes, the Collins Elite was a group in the federal government that was financed in order to investigate the occult connection to the phenomenon. In the earliest we know of them existing is in 1960, but it was a group of people that was researching. I mean, my God, what they first started doing is they went out to scholars of the ancient Near East, they went out to demonologists, and they were trying to understand, okay, is there an occultic highway to connect, to communicate with these
Right.
beings?
Some kind
And
of
so they
secret.
right, excuse me, they reached out to Ruth Montgomery. Ruth Montgomery was a psychic remote viewer, worked with Edgar Casey.
Mhm.
Ruth
Right.
Montgomery is the lady that authored the hypothesis of walk-ins. They interviewed her. They went out and started interviewing people who were having out-of-body experiences, and they were considering it an abduction. Very interesting. It boggles my mind
Was Jack
Because
Parsons part of that by any chance? Or
yes, Jack Parsons was. Now, what's really interesting to me is the religious scholar Diana Walsh Pasuka. She gave a lecture at Rice University's The Archives of the Impossible, and she said that the invisible college. Now, by the way, Collins Elite was invisible. All right, and what she means by that is you don't know they're there researching, but they're very much present. They're there.
Mm-hmm.
And she said the invisible college is now trying to communicate with the phenomenon by virtue of esoteric, you ready for this? Protocols. Not rituals, because that would sound mystic.
Of course.
Right. But of course, we're talking about the same thing.
Protocols.
Yeah.
Protocols. Right. And so here's the problem, though, and this is and you guys that follow my research, you cannot, and she also, by the way, she also mentioned Jack Parsons. You cannot validate the man, Jack Parsons, without validating his methods. And if you're going to validate his methods, we're in trouble.
Right.
Because he was performing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or many,
it's wild.
Right. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that what Crowley did was absolutely wrong, but I mean, there's extremist methods of ritual magic to make connection to the other side.
Yeah. He performed chaos magic and sex magic and all kinds of stuff.
Talking about mental states, and you're dealing with mental states. And he was a smart man. You like him or hate him, smart guy,
very intelligent.
I think he understood this, and the elaborate procedures were more probably for psychodrama to get his mind in the right state to make that connection.
Mm-hmm.
Like a medium might connect to discarnate spirit.
Right.
Very well put.
I see parallels here.
Yeah, it's a unique thing, man. Like, see, again, if you validate Parsons, you have to validate his methods. And if you're going to validate Parsons, you got to validate Aleister Crowley's work. And if you're gonna validate Crowley, then you're gonna validate Eliphas Levi, a Kabbalistic magician, and then Eliphas Levi, right? It's literally the root system, of contacting this phenomenon. And then you get to a Brahman the Mage, which was a big magician Eliphas Levi study. All of it points to the fact that, at least to Aleister Crowley, he knew he wasn't contacting aliens. He knew he was trying to conjure angels. He was performing Kabbalistic rituals. Now, again, we have such a dogmatist outlook on the phenomenon. It's got to be
an idea of
aliens
controlling everything too.
Right.
I've got to say this because, I think a lot of these beings all kind of connected, not really that different from each other. Yeah. And they may be different races of aliens at the end of the day, or whatever it is. These angels, the demons. You and I talked about angels earlier in the week. They're this like larger consciousness. They're not necessarily there to do good at all times.
Yeah.
In fact, occultists often say they're the hardest consciousness, or
they're the hardest to reach. And what's troubling to me again is you have so let's take Crowley for instance. Okay, so you have protocols, right? Protocols. They're rituals. And Diana Walsh Pasuka will talk about Tyler Durden or Tyler D, who is like the mediator between the phenomenon and us. Mm-hmm. And so he would go through protocols, and he would take her to the sacred space and all this stuff, and he would build an altar and all this stuff. I think it's very interesting, and I put this on Twitter. I don't care what we, if the moment these beings begin to communicate with us about religion, and using that, religious text as vehicles of meaning, it takes the conversation out of the hands of ufology and says, hey, listen, go back to ancient texts.
Absolutely.
Betty Luca was told by these creatures we're watchers.
Manipulation, like always plays a role in this, right?
Right. And I'm not the only one that says that. John Keel says that. John Keel was, everybody knows John Keel. He said the same thing. It's quite interesting. Yeah, let's get to this guy. What's that?
This is Lamb.
So
This
Right.
is Aleister Crowley's. This is what he. I don't know. Did he contribute?
he communicated to Lamb in
communicated with
Egypt.
them.
And this was who responded, and this is way before people had this idea that aliens had these big heads and little eyes and like oversized skulls, and there it is, like, and clearly, like, today's alien. But,
Yep. And again,
the gray.
What's really interesting to me is nobody told Crowley these were aliens, did they?
No.
Oh, snap! Right? No, they didn't. Right.
But he
And
drew
so
that.
this exactly right. So he was working Kabbalistic magic. He was again, the Babylon working, the Amon trial, all that stuff, rituals. So what we're looking at here is a ritualistic magician who was performing Kabbalistic rituals and incantations. He was getting his stuff from Eliphas Levi, who got his stuff from Abramelin and the Mage. Again, these were not extraterrestrials. But here's the biggest thing. They allowed themselves to appear to him as angels.
Right.
Just like they're allowing themselves,
the Baphomet figure that we all know with the go ahead and the boobs and the whole thing. That was I love his
them boobs, yeah.
Them
boobs.
Yeah.
I think it's an Alice in Chains song, them boobs. So we have books like this, right? Which is a great book. The Free Foundation that started this, and Dr. Egnan Mitchell, who is a very fascinating individual in his own right, and Ray Hernandez and other people, and they make some very good points in here. I don't want to say this book is not good. A lot of it is based around a survey that they took, and most of the people that had alien abduction phenomena occur to them, even in spite of the negative experiences. And this reminds me of the book Communion, of course, would go back. And I'm not condoning this. I'm just saying there's something about this, right? Like it's almost like a hypnosis or something.
Right.
That's occurring with these people, and they seem to have what they call contact modalities. Ray Hernandez defines in that book enhanced psychic-like abilities, which reminds me again of those hypnagogic states, astral projection, out-of-body experiences, all these things. There's a line here. There's a correlation where they're all kind of tying in, where the consciousness is free, to interpret information.
Let me poke a hole through the contact modality hypothesis.
Please do.
So case in point, the contact modality hypothesis says, okay, this is the way that they would appear to us in a way that we would understand. They cannot appear to us any other way, but a way that we would understand. Let's flip it. Let's invert it for a fleeting moment and say the reason they're appearing to us in that way is to manipulate us. Case in point, abductees. Jesus appears to them. Well, the hypothesis would say Jesus appeared to them because it knows that that's the only way it could appear to them in order for them to interpret and understand the language and the message. Okay. However, Jesus is not just appearing to them. He's saying, hey, listen, all your kids are going to be mine. Okay. Yep. So the hypothesis is this. I'm going to appear to you as something I know you'll believe in. A researcher comes out and says he's only appearing to you that way because he knows that you'll believe in it. And that's the only way it could appear to you as. I think, again, what we're seeing are two sides of the same mirror. And I think that a lot of the contact modality, again, it's built on the fact that, yes, it's appearing to you in this manner, but it's only doing that because that's the only way it could appear to you for you to understand it.
Right.
But if we look at the data sample, it's not just appearing to us in that manner, it's doing that to deceive us. Dr. Carla Turner had an abductee.
Keep them going on, right? It's like leaving
You
breadcrumbs.
follow me? Does this make
Yes.
sense?
Yes.
I hope to God it makes sense, because we
No, for
can't
our
let it.
audience, what we're saying is that when they talk about contact modalities in that book, for example, and Grant Cameron also talks about this, they're saying that people have abduction experiences tend to come away with like psychic experiences afterwards, or abilities. Like suddenly now they're having these lucid dreams, or they're able to read people better. Like something gets enhanced. You know, I personally, I feel it's like the manipulation of the brain to begin with that creates that, and it's just open up those channels, and it leaves it like a scar. Like now you're, oh, yeah, there you go.
Right.
Right.
But
There's something there.
Could be like a breadcrumb, like you're saying, you know, to keep them going back. Because why do they go back? If they talk about things like anal probes and these horrific things that the limbs getting sawed
I
off,
got one for you.
why would you want that?
You know, you're right. You're right. And so I think, again, that then I call it preying on our potential. You know, I think that there are hidden pockets of our potentials within us that they know exists. We're ignorant of it, but they know for sure it exists. And I think that's the area of our world and our being that they manipulate the most. You know, and I think it's a very interesting thing. But with this idea that, okay, even after the abduction, you know, we have cognitive abilities, psychical abilities that we never had before. I think that's the potential they trigger in order to do what they want to do with us. And then afterward, we're still being able to do that because it's a secondary consequence to what they were doing and the potential that they hacked into. But Joshua Dixon.
Yeah, I know lots of comments out there. I'm just throwing them up
yeah.
on the screen. We can continue our
Sorry,
conversation.
Nate.
No, it's all good. You're good. Yeah, so it's really unique. But yeah, they're preying on our potential. I mean, it's the part of our existence we're the most ignorant of, that they're attacking and preying on.
That's true.
Right. And Joshua says, I thought it was cool the Pope to say that if ET exists, he'd welcome him into the church. LOL, but that shows how ridiculous that statement is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
no, we love the comments. When I say I'm throwing them up on the screen, I'm just acknowledging that we are reading them. And,
yes.
You know, we acknowledge you guys and love you guys for commenting. So thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, and getting back to the known, the unknown, and unknowable. You know, when we have abductees who literally go through abduction accounts and experiences, and they don't realize they're out of body, that's the unknown or the unknowable part of us. Right? You know, it's wild, but I think that's really where at least my research is focused on, is the consciousness aspect.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely. That's what we're kind of into going to now. You know, we look at that and say, how does that affect like a haunting or paranormal event? And a manipulation of consciousness, certainly the stealing of a consciousness. Or, you know, you wonder what you're talking to when you say, you know, it's a disembodied spirit. Well, what is it? It's a consciousness, right? So it's absolutely relevant information. There's no question. And if you want to know the hows and whys, you want to get down to what it is you're doing, actually, you know, doing with the spirit box or whatever medium you are using to communicate with the dead, even if it's your mind. I think it's good to look at this, you know, and go into this kind of avenue, something that's greater than what you're being told on TV or in books or whatever.
The wows and eyes.
Yeah, the wows and eyes. What we call the wows and eyes, or the hows and
the blonde moment one night. Bad.
And I said the hows and wives, and she goes, the wows and eyes. So, yeah, dude. Yeah, roll me one too. You know, but it is true, right? So you want to know how things work. I know because I've had well, I don't know everything, certainly, but I've had astral projection experiences, very clear, vivid ones throughout my lifetime, that I know there's no sense of time when you get out of the body. Everything is instantaneous. It's all just whatever you think. And I think it is the same for the spirits that we talk to. They can be doing different things at the same time. Even.
Absolutely.
You know, if they can imagine it, it just happens. They're moving literally at the speed of light, I believe. So our time concept of being linear is so different and so open to vulnerabilities.
Mhm.
Right? When we talk about things like going to sleep and going into states, and you're ripe to have a more interesting experience, a longer experience, I suppose,
Mhm.
but you're also ripe to being violated in a way as well.
Oh yeah.
True
Oh,
that.
let's get back to something that you mentioned, and that is the fact that there are experiencers that have been through what we would consider to be an unspeakable, horrific travesty,
Yes.
who are now going back to it and saying, "Hey, it was meant to happen." Like,
Right.
let me say this:
And it was
there
a
was,
good.
there was a hypothesis that I think is the
Thanks. You
shittiest
stuck a log up my
hypothesis
ass.
ever. Do what?
It's like, thanks. You stuck a log up my ass.
Yeah,
All
go-
right.
Dude,
Let's do
it's
that
the
again.
shittiest hypothesis I've ever seen.
Right.
And again, it's a face palm. It's self-defeating, self-refuting. It's literally the most illiterate hypocrisy. All right, but you get my point. I think it's peasantry, and this is the hypothesis that says, "Hey, listen, you agreed to what happened to you prior to being born. If I did, why are you telling me? How would you know what I agreed to?"
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So, right. So that's the hypothesis. And I think it's very interesting because Dr. Carla Turner had a case study where a lady is literally sleeping. Okay, she's having a day nap, and these two translucent beings walk through her wall and physically assault her. Hey, listen, it's your fault. You agreed to it. It's
Yeah.
blasphemous.
When did that happen? When was that agreement?
Blasphemous. What the hell has happened to our field?
Exactly.
Right.
I
And
have
it's
a big
It's so
problem with it.
stupid.
It's accepted. They're trying to help humanity from itself. Maybe some of
Right.
them are.
So they
but
say, but who
Oh
are
my
they?
God.
maybe
Okay.
they
You
aren't.
know what?
Okay.
What's
I
the
don't
stop?
know.
Okay.
How do we know? What do they
What's
get
the
out?
right? What's to stop someone from going and assaulting that person and saying, "Hey, listen, you agreed to this. You just don't remember."
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's ludicrous, and I'm telling you, that's what we've settled for research now.
I
And
agree.
you know what it comes
I
down
agree.
to? What it comes down to is, well, I met a girl or met a guy that channeled a guide, and they told us this stuff. Let me tell you something. John
Yeah.
D. and Edward Kelly met a guide who gave them the Enochian language and manifested as a beautiful young lady up until they swapped wives like it told them to. And then it turned into another being and mocked them.
Oops.
Just like Ted Rice thought he was being visited by guides until these
Just
guys
like
wanted to
Ruthie.
have intercourse with his grandmother. It's
No, I'm joking.
it's no, okay. It boggles my mind because
We agree.
it's been
No, I agree
here.
with you.
It
Yeah.
drives us nuts. We
Yeah.
we think
Like,
about
what are we
this
thinking?
all the time.
Why would
Right.
they think it's a good thing?
Right. And you know what it
Radiation
is?
burns people, I mean,
Yeah, and here it is. Radiation burns. The pregnancies.
So-
It's coming out, and it's coming out from our government, which is
Right.
just a huge statement in and of itself.
so
Right? This is a way bigger disclosure than last year.
thank you.
Way bigger.
Was it last year or was it a couple months back? I have no idea. Time.
Pretty sure it
But-
was last year.
Yeah, it was like we
Last
knew
year.
what they weren't going to say anything, but now
Yeah.
we have this.
Right.
So what does that mean? Do they take over your brain like you were saying? Do they take over the 25% of the brain cells?
I don't know. This
In
been
terms
studied
of-
on mice, right? Where they
Yes.
manipulate some of the mice brain cells, and the mice is like screwed up afterwards, and apparently hallucinating and
It
seeing
sees
things. and-
Yes.
yeah, we
And
were
it's
just
only
we were just watching that, right? We were
25% of the
talking about it.
neurons in its brain.
Yeah, it didn't
So-
take much. So
Yeah.
for a human, which apparently they're fairly similar,
Complex.
we're all
so-
just little rats in the maze. If something comes in external, manipulates your consciousness, manipulates say 25% of your consciousness, pulls you into another world, does it forcefully, swaps your consciousness from where you are now to something they want it to be, maybe takes it
Yeah.
out completely in the case of, say, a fetus.
Mm.
Like, what kind of brain damage is done and left? Right
Right.
at that point. You don't know. Nobody knows, but there's probably something.
Some kind of experiment that we can do. Something,
I don't know. I think that, it gets back to the idea that they're pulling souls out of bodies in many cases. That's where my research is, I don't, we can call them ET, we can call them aliens, we can call
interdimensional.
Right. The truth of the matter is, like, of course, they're going to be angels. Look at this. Okay, so Dr. Claude Turner wrote a book called The Masquerade of Angels because they had abductees who, in their abduction accounts, these entities said, we're angels.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, to Betty Luca, they were watchers. Watchers. Those are both biblical accounts, biblical references. Okay. I mean, again, Aleister Crowley thought he was conjuring angels to control them. The issue is, it's not the fact that they are angels, it's the fact they want us to believe they are.
Step into roles.
Right. And it's a label. We're talking again about labels.
Exactly. Like
Right.
Anne-Marie.
Right.
I know I just sent you this book, right? The Physics of Angels.
That's Rupert Sheldrake.
Rupert Sheldrake, a theologian, Matthew Fox.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting in the way that they trace it back to like the Big Bang, and they can, show these same pattern forms that exist through the universe from what may be the Big Bang and whatever that is. There they are, supposedly helping, but you have to wonder what the motive is.
Exactly.
Right. And it doesn't say that in the book. And if you read it with an open mind, you can look at that and say, well, wow, that is really something. There is definitely something to those physics of angels. Yet you can go, oh, why are they doing that? And that kind of thing.
Right.
We were talking the other day, and I went down this dark path. I'm like, you know what? We're screwed, because
we're like bottom feeders
our
in a way.
Heroes are,
we
but
think we are and we're not. We are big hierarchy.
And you know what it is? I was talking to a guy that follows my work, and we were having a conversation. I think it was on Instagram, and there's something. Okay, like, they don't have to destroy us if they can distract us.
True.
And
doesn't
this
that
distraction.
1%? Don't you see this 1% thing like all through history? If you believe in any of that Anunnaki history, and not that exactly I got it exactly right, but
going into politics, folks.
there's the aliens that are clearly in control, the giants, the Nephilim. They're clearly in control of the rest of the populace. They're always smaller, they're lesser. You go into Walmart and they check your receipt as a subtle message with that.
Good Lord.
It's everywhere, and it's always been there. There's been racism and all these problems with cultures and people that.
Well, it's a control mechanism.
Exactly.
Yes.
Again, I'll be whatever you want me to be. Again, dude, we get back to my cases of the incubi entities. The case I had in India where it's just, they appeared to the girl, the woman, 11 times in the image of every lover she's been with. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. You can call me Adam, you can call me Joe, you can call me Jimmy. The idea is, I'm trying to work a program on you.
Right.
Right. And I'll let you to believe, that I am what I want you. I have control here, and you could believe I'm Adam as long as you don't believe I am who I am. And so it's a mask. It's a mask.
Yeah, we agree. We understand.
Yeah, we really are cheap. I think we're kept too busy to really stop and think, because if we weren't so busy trying to survive, then you start to think about, like, why are things this way? Exactly. And I don't get into government conspiracies. We don't do any of that on our show, political stuff, but
we talk a whole hell of a lot about it.
The world is kind of controlled by politics and of one sort of another, and the key word, it's not, this one or that one, it's control. They're always controlled.
That's it.
and they will not let you see behind the mask.
Nope.
You know, yeah, it's like Jacques Vallée, you know, all these guys, even John Keel, you know, and I'll tell you what, there's another thinker out there, I forget his name, but he's an influential thinker, and he's saying, okay, we're dealing with three different phenomena. We're dealing with government, and then we're dealing with extraterrestrial, and then we're dealing with interdimensional. I think that's all well and good until you have an experiencer who comes out and says, hey, listen, I saw that entity as all three in one. You know, it appeared to me as a government official, and it looked like a man, and then it was a gray, and then all this stuff.
Mhm.
Right. Anne Marie Young, yes, I put on Twitter today, we're dealing with two threads of the same tapestry. And Steve Mayer agrees with that. And I believe Lou Elizondo, again, he's pointing to that. You know, it's very interesting, all of it. But again, I think that we're dealing with phenomena that is designed to bypass our instinctual awareness and knows
Yeah.
enough about us to manipulate us.
Right.
Yes.
And they're only going to let out so much information. That's why I was shocked that there was this 1,500
Yeah.
plus page report, 1574, I think it was, released to the Sun, because even with the redactions, it's a lot of information that they're giving out. So what are they not telling us?
Exactly.
Okay, they've been sitting on this information, and it goes back to, I think, 2017, you know, whatever it is. It was a short time period there that ATIP even existed. You know, what else do they know? They're not going to tell us.
I don't know. I'll tell you what's interesting.
Slowly,
You
if
know,
they really told us the truth.
Well, we have, okay, like talking about disclosure and everything, we have people that are a part of the Invisible College that Diana Posuka has worked with. One of them is Gary Nolan. And yeah, Gary Nolan said, you know, I don't want to really talk about, this is what his words, you know, I don't want to talk about this subject unless it's to a different audience. And so what's really interesting to me is that this governmental disclosure movement is coming to us first and to the academic second. Right?
Yes.
And so again, it goes back to that article in the Sun. Why would they go to the National Enquirer version?
Good point. That's a very good point.
To get this information out, because we would be the people who read that, the only people who believe this stuff.
It's like to create a belief system to give it, you know, legs to give it to the academic community.
Can you imagine that? I mean, let's go down the articles of National Enquirer in the Sun, you know, like, you know, the sun melts in 5 different ways. And somebody reads that, they're like, oh my God, you know, they light up a cigarette, tell the daughter of the sun, did you know the sun's melting? And then in the same paragraph, these people give us truth. So that's the way they want to communicate to us. I think it's strange.
It is very strange. The Sun, for folks who don't know, are the ones that made the request, the Freedom of Information Act, out there, and they made the request to the government to release these documents, this 1,500 plus page plethora of alien abduction phenomena. It itself is a tabloid, but they made the request, and it could have been you or I that made the request. However, it was granted to the tabloid.
Granted, very good word. And it included pregnancies that are missing it. It's just wild, because I guarantee you, I can't prove this. I'm going to throw this out there. I guarantee you the Sun has ran stories about missing fetus syndrome. I promise you they have.
I'm sure they have as well. Right? It's like the National Enquirer in the U.S. It's pretty much the same kind of tabloid thing, but they give it to them to give out. So that media that is questionable to the public is the one that's going to dispense all this information. And they haven't like released all the documents. I couldn't find them. I found drips and drabs, you know, like little parts of them. They've only released a few things, but they have them. They have the, you know, complete report.
It sounds like a dog whistle, guys. It's called plausible deniability.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, you really believe that's happening? Well, look, the Sun also said this. You must believe that too. Right? And it
Exactly.
boggles my mind.
Same
Here's Gary
formula
Nolan.
that's been in use for
Yeah.
years, many years.
Right.
Going back to Roswell and those
Yeah.
kind of things. Yeah.
I like Gary Nolan. I watch him a
He's
lot.
a beast. He's a
Yeah.
beast, dude. I love him to death.
Yep. But I wanted to thank again, just real quick, Melissa Hui. She gave another 50 stars.
Oh, thank you, Melissa.
Yes,
We appreciate
so that's
that.
twice tonight. Thank you so very much. That was
And,
to our Paralink.
You put here's your comment. It was you're thinking about getting your mom set up with cameras downstairs in the basement, hopefully to help your mother feel safe. Those footprints are still there.
Good Lord.
Maybe I should take a square part of that ceiling out and find the right people to check it out, but only if my mother will be protected. So you feel like your basement is haunted, Melissa?
She has another paragraph above that what had happened between her and her mom and her dad, and it's kind of really creepy.
I'm sorry, I missed part of that. I'm not sure it's in this feed.
It is. It's way up.
Okay. But obviously you're experiencing some kind of like pretty haunted phenomena there.
I think it's abduction, and I think it's kind of both. I'm almost like with poltergeist activity as well.
Yeah, I'd be concerned.
It has to do with the white light, she said. So
it has to do with the white light.
Yeah.
Right. And I did see a comment that said going into the light, and this is so different than what you normally see, was like a extremely painful and torturous experience. Where everybody says go into the light. So there you go. There's a controversial thought. Maybe the light is not where you want to go.
That's John Lear. Yeah, John Lear.
Who
John
passed
Lear
away?
said, "Yeah, he told Art Bell. This is interesting. He told Art Bell. He said, everybody says follow the light when you die. He said that's not it. You got to follow the darkness." Interesting. Obviously, it has nothing to do with what we're talking about in this particular case study. But, this is not unheard of, guys. If it is an abduction, again, I mean, even in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, they had poltergeist activity in the house, lights turning off and all that. So, it's very interesting to me, but I do believe that it's the same phenomenon wearing different masks. There's no such thing as hauntology and ufology. I think they're one and the same. It's just we've focused our attention on, different masks.
I don't know. See, no, that's what baffles me. I think there are ghosts or spirits, most definitely. But I think there are
discarnate beings.
Yes, but I also think that there are so many other different kinds that, like we were saying earlier, we can't see. But I
think we have limited vision, right? We talk about things like
33%.
panpsychism a lot, right? Where different beings hold certain consciousness. It might be my cat has a version of its consciousness. He's very aware of me. He's certainly aware of himself. There's no question about that. But there are certain things he probably can't see. And if you're sitting out in your yard and an ant is running across the lawn, the ant just goes over your arm or your leg like you didn't exist, right? Doesn't even seem to acknowledge you're there. But you're there and you can crush the ant. Maybe you're mad at it and you just like go, flick it, ruin its life. Its consciousness now ends its slice of consciousness, degree, or what have you. I don't know that it's so much different for humans versus something that is greater than us. We always think we're king of the hill. We're not necessarily king of the hill,
Yeah.
With that earlier,
so,
right?
We might be that ant that's going over the leg of something much bigger than us, and we don't recognize the fact that it can just sit there and go, yeah, done with you.
Yep.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know. I mean, I know what I've researched, and I know, my case studies and other people's case studies. But again, this phenomenon is elusive, it's evasive, and you know, like you said, it does seem to have a lot of control over this world. A lot of control over this world.
It
Absolutely.
does, and it does seem like there's a portion of the population, at least whether they're human or not. And I'm not really buying that people are reptiles, but there is something to that, and it is historic. And you know, we're getting to the closing hour, and I know we all gotta move on, but thank you so much for coming on
Yes.
tonight, especially
Thanks for
last
having me.
night, having a conversation.
Yes, we do.
You're
This
the
is your
best.
bag.
We
Yeah,
love you.
know, we were hoping, you know.
We're like, wow, there's
Yeah.
nothing better than this disclosure of information and Jay Gillis.
Yes.
Where should people
Thank
find
you.
you that want to follow your work?
Well, I'm on social media, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. Woo!
Obviously.
What are you liking the best? Where are you most? Are you on Twitter or Instagram? I know
Everywhere now.
your
dude.
favorite
It's-
Instagram for a
Facebook.
while.
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. That's where I'm at. I used to have a website, and I thought, man, I'm everywhere else. Why do I have to have a website? You know, so that's where you can find me. And from time to time, I'll put up YouTube videos. But it's you know, I love you guys to death, and it's such a blast to be on with you guys. And I'll be in your city in June, and we're gonna have to do Harry's Burgers.
Yes.
Oh, we can't wait. We're gonna do
Yeah,
Harry's.
man.
More. We're gonna
We're
go
gonna
to
do a lot.
some good places as
It's gonna be a
well.
blast.
Not that
Yeah.
Harry's is bad, but yeah, we're
Thank you,
gonna have a
Greg.
lot of fun. We can't wait. We love you, man, and thank you so much for
Love you
coming
guys
on.
too. Thank you
Yes.
for having me, Bob.
Stay backstage. I'll be with you in a second.
Well, that's all the time we have, and I hope you guys enjoyed that.
Yes, great
I know
costs. Excellent show.
We went off on a little bit of a tangent as usual. It's the way of the dark horse, it would seem.
It's
you know,
there's so many
so
topics.
awesome of Nathaniel to come on though tonight
yeah,
and talk about this
absolutely.
because he's been talking about this stuff for a very long time.
Yeah, and this is
and
like
giving clear data for the same stuff that our government is finally releasing.
Yes.
And I hope you guys appreciate it. We certainly appreciate your comments. Melissa Hui, I would like to know more about
you. Yes.
that story. And Greg Koss, thank you. Anne Marie, as always.
Yes.
Joshua Dixon, thank you. A very interesting story about the two water bags. Oh my God.
Hold on one second. Melissa Hui, Gmail us at bigfootandthebunny@gmail.com, and we may be able to help you out a little bit in your area.
Right. And if any of you guys want to reach out to us, that's a great direct way to do it. Is our Gmail is Bigfoot and the Bunny. I know this is the Dark Horse show, but you know, we do Bigfoot and the Bunny as well. And we tend to kind of use that as a hub for most of our communications. Bigfoot and not in and the Bunny.
I knew he was going to say that, so I was laughing.
At gmail.com. But thank you so much. I hope you have a great week. We have some amazing shows coming up. Gail Heison's going to be with us Saturday night on Bigfoot and the Bunny. Shaman. We're going to be talking shamanistic stuff. We got Lloyd Aubach coming up. We've got ridiculous. John Yost is coming with his abduction documentary. Great stuff. Stick around. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great week. We'll see you.
Bye-bye.